The voice that seduced an entire generation of Americans, the voice behind Cry Me a River, belonged to a woman who swore she couldn't really sing. "It's only a thimbleful of a voice," Julie London once admitted. "I have to use it close to the microphone." She said she ran out of breath in the wrong places. She called herself, almost dismissively, a living room singer. Someone who hummed a little around the piano at the end of a party, and nothing more. And yet that thimbleful of a voice recorded one of the most haunting torch songs in American history. A song about heartbreak so real that 50 years later it still stops people cold. Here's the part almost nobody remembers. The millions who came to love Julie London in the 1970s as the calm, kind nurse at the center of a hit TV show had no idea they were watching the same woman. No idea that the gentle face in the white uniform was once the smokiest contralto voice in America. This is what really happened to Julie London. She was never supposed to be a star. She was born to be one, maybe, but she never wanted it. Julie London came into the world as Gayle Peck on September 26, 1926, in Santa Rosa, California, the only child of a vaudeville song and dance team. Music wasn't a career in that family, it was just the air they breathed. By the age of 3, she was already singing on her parents' radio program. She and her mother worshipped Billie Holiday. And somewhere in all of that, a very shy little girl learned that she could make a room go quiet with her voice, and that she wasn't at all sure she liked being looked at. When the family moved to Los Angeles, teenage Gayle took a job running an elevator in a department store on Hollywood Boulevard. And that is where the movies found her. A talent agent named Sue Carroll, the wife of the Hollywood star Alan Ladd, spotted the striking young elevator operator and saw a face made for the screen. Her name was legally changed from Julie Peck to Julie London when she was just 17 years old. The film work came quickly, if not always memorably. Small roles, low-budget pictures, a supporting part opposite the great Edward G. Robinson. She was beautiful in that particular mid-century way that photographed like a dream, and Hollywood knew exactly what to do with a face like that. And then she met Jack Webb. This is the part of the story that connects to everything. Before he was Sergeant Joe Friday, before he was the most disciplined producer in television, Jack Webb was a jazz-loving young actor who fell hard for a beautiful singer. Julie London and Jack Webb married in 1947. Their whole bond was built on a shared love of music. Long nights, record spinning, two people who understood each other in the language of a melody. They had 2 daughters, Stacy and Lisa. And here is the first surprising truth about Julie London. When Jack Webb's career exploded with Dragnet, she didn't fight to keep her own. She walked away from it. She retired, still in her 20s, to be a wife and a mother. The spotlight had never been the thing she wanted. The home was. But the marriage didn't last. By the mid-1950s, Julie London and Jack Webb were divorced, and a woman who had already given up one career now found herself starting over, quiet and a little reclusive, unsure of who she was supposed to be. That's when the second man walked in. His name was Bobby Troup, a jazz pianist and songwriter, the man who had written the classic Route 66. The song Nat King Cole had turned into a standard, the one everybody already knew. He heard Julie London sing, not on a stage, but the way she always sang, casually, among friends. And where she heard a thimbleful of a voice, Bobby Troup heard something no one else was hearing, something intimate, something completely her own. He pushed her. Gently, and then not so gently. She had no interest, by her own admission, in singing for her supper. She was, as one account put it, fiercely reluctant, but Troup wouldn't let it go. He got her a booking at a little club, no audition required. He brought a record man named Simon Waronker to hear her one night, and Waronker signed her on the spot to a brand new label called Liberty Records. The reluctant living room singer was about to become a phenomenon, and the song that would make it happen was already waiting for her, hiding, of all places, inside a movie made by her ex-husband. To understand Cry Me a River, you have to understand where it came from. And where it came from is almost too perfect to be true. The song was written by a man named Arthur Hamilton, Julie London's classmate and by some accounts her boyfriend from high school. Hamilton was working as a songwriter for Jack Webb's production company, and it was Julie herself who had helped him get that job. In 1955, Webb was making a film called Pete Kelly's Blues, and Hamilton wrote "Cry Me a River," hoping the legendary Ella Fitzgerald would sing it in the picture. It never happened. Webb objected to one of the words in the lyric. He didn't think audiences would buy it, and the song was cut from the film entirely. So there it sat, a gorgeous, wounded torch ballad about a lover who did somebody wrong and now wants to come crawling back. And the answer, cool and devastating, is no. Cry me a river. I cried a river over you. When Julie London heard it, she didn't just like it, she recognized it. She heard, in those coolly defiant lyrics, echoes of her own troubled marriage to Jack Webb, the man whose company had just thrown the song away. She asked Arthur Hamilton if she could record it. He said yes. What happened next is the stuff of music legend. Cry Me a River wasn't even planned for the session. It was added in the last few minutes of a recording date, almost as an afterthought. The guitarist, the great Barney Kessel, and the bass player had never seen the music. There was no elaborate arrangement, just a guitar, a bass, and that over-smoked, intimate contralto voice pulled up close to the microphone, exactly the way she'd said she had to sing. They captured it in a few takes. That was it. That was the whole recording, and it became a million-seller. Cry Me a River turned Julie London into a national sensation almost overnight. Her debut album, Julie Is Her Name, shot up the charts. Billboard named her the single most popular female vocalist in America, not for 1 year, but for 3 years running. 1955, 1956, and 1957. In 1957, she landed on the cover of Life magazine. The song also appeared in the 1956 film The Girl Can't Help It, performed on screen, introducing her voice to a whole new audience through the movies. Decades later, the recording would be inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame and preserved by the Library of Congress as a national treasure. And the reach of that song never stopped. In 2006, a new generation encountered it through the film V for Vendetta, where Cry Me a River played against the opening images and reminded an entirely different era what a torch song could feel like. And here is where the conflict of her life comes into focus, because the world did not fall in love with Julie London the artist. The world fell in love with Julie London the image. The record company knew exactly what they were selling. Her album covers were events unto themselves, glamorous, bare-shouldered, provocative for their time. Titles like Calendar Girl and, notoriously, Nice Girls Don't Stay for Breakfast. She became the definitive cocktail siren of the era, the smoky torch singer in the corner of every sophisticated room, the woman who would go on to inspire the cartoon bombshell Jessica Rabbit, the famous character from the 1988 film Who Framed Roger Rabbit. London herself joked, with that dry humor of hers, that the label spent more time on the album covers than they ever spent on the actual music. But underneath the glamour was a woman who found the whole thing faintly ridiculous and more than a little uncomfortable. She was relentlessly self-deprecating about her own gift. "I'm a girl who needs amplification," she said. "I've never learned how to breathe properly. I always run out of breath during a song, then I gasp in the wrong places." She was not being falsely modest. She genuinely did not believe she was a great singer, and the critics who really listened knew she was wrong about herself. Yes, she didn't have the range of an Ella Fitzgerald or a Sarah Vaughan, but what she had was rarer in its way. Restraint, softness, the ability to make you feel like she was singing in one room, to one person, to you. Just when you thought you had her figured out as nothing more than a pretty face who could carry a tune, she'd place a small, unexpected catch at the end of a line, a flicker of real feeling, to remind you that you were in the presence of an actual artist. That was the tension she carried for years, the private, introverted woman versus the sultry public image. "I dislike women in large groups, and as individuals," she once said, only half joking. "I'm the world's worst." This was not a person built for fame. This was a person who tolerated fame because it had, almost by accident, found her twice. She married Bobby Troup on the last day of 1959, and through the 60s she kept recording, more than 30 albums in all. Even as her heart drifted further from the spotlight and closer to home, she had more children, she built a life, and by the end of the decade, with her voice worn down by years of cigarettes, she simply stopped. Her final album came out in 1969, and then Julie London, the biggest torch singer of her age, quietly closed that chapter and walked away from music for good. She thought she was done being famous. She had no idea that the strangest, warmest twist of her whole life was still coming, and that it would come from the last person on earth she'd have expected. In 1972, the phone rang, and the man on the other end was Jack Webb. Think about that. The ex-husband, the man she'd married and divorced 2 decades earlier, the man whose company had once tossed away Crimea River. By every rule of how these things usually go, they should have been strangers, or worse, but they weren't. Julie London and Jack Webb had stayed close. She rarely even spoke about the divorce. She simply kept him in her life as a friend. And now Webb was the executive producer of a brand new NBC series about paramedics, and he wanted her for it. He wanted her to play Dixie McCall, the sharp, warm head nurse at the center of Rampart General Hospital. By her own account, she was shocked he asked. But she said yes, on one condition that delighted her. Her husband, Bobby Troup, would be cast right alongside her as Dr. Joe Early. So there it was, one of the most unlikely arrangements in television history. A man directing his ex-wife and her new husband, all 3 of them somehow the best of friends. The show was Emergency, and for 6 seasons, Julie London was Nurse Dixie McCall. The role earned her a Golden Globe Award nomination in 1974, though by then the accolade almost seemed beside the point. To a whole new generation, she wasn't a cocktail siren at all. She was something better. She was the steady, unflappable heart of that emergency room, the one who kept her head when everyone else was losing theirs, warm to the young paramedics, tough when she needed to be. Kids who had never heard a note of Crimea River grew up watching her every Saturday night and simply loved her. And the warmth wasn't an act. The bond she formed with her young co-stars, Randolph Mantooth and Kevin Tighe, the paramedics of Squad 51, carried straight off the screen and into real life. Mantooth and the cast stayed close to Julie London and her family for the rest of her days. The show that her ex-husband built didn't just give her a second career, it gave her a second family. It was, in a strange way, everything she'd always actually wanted. Not the spotlight, the people. But the last chapter of Julie London's life asked more of her than anyone should have to give. On September 27, 1996, one single day after her 70th birthday, her daughter, Stacey Webb, was killed in a car accident. A mother burying a child in the same week she should have been celebrating. It is the kind of loss there are no words for, and Julie London, ever private, largely bore it away from the public eye. Her own health was already failing. She had suffered a stroke in 1995, and she never fully recovered from it. Then, in February of 1999, she lost Bobby Troup, her husband of 40 years, the man who had heard something in her voice that she couldn't hear herself, and who had loved her long past the fading of the fame. She outlived him by less than 2 years. Julie London died on October 18, 2000, at her home in Encino, California. She was 74 years old. The cause was cardiac arrest, her body finally worn down after the long years of declining health. She was laid to rest at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills. And this is the quiet miracle of how she's remembered. 2 completely different generations mourned 2 completely different women, and both of them were her. One generation wept for the smoky contralto of Crimea River, the most intimate torch singer of the 1950s. The other wept for Nurse Dixie McCall, the kind face who had gotten them through the Saturday nights of their childhood. She never believed she was much of a singer. She never wanted to be a star at all, and she became, twice over, unforgettable. There's a lesson buried in Julie London's life, if you want to find one. She spent her whole career insisting she wasn't special, a thimbleful of a voice, a living room singer, a woman who'd rather be home than on any stage in the world, and the world kept refusing to believe her, kept falling in love with her, over and over, in whatever form it found her. Maybe that's the thing about real warmth. You can't manufacture it, and you can't hide it. It finds its way through, whether you're leaning into a microphone in 1955 or standing in a television emergency room in 1975. Julie London is gone. So is Bobby Troup. So is Jack Webb. But turn on that song tonight, just the guitar, the bass, and that voice pulled up close, and she's right there in the room with you. exactly the way she always wanted to be. If this story meant something to you, tell us in the comments. Were you a Dixie McCall fan, or did you find her through the music first? Tell us which Julie London you remember. And if you're just discovering that voice tonight, welcome, you're in for something special.